Savvy Young Professional podcast. My name is Tanida Mullen, and I'm going to be your host for this podcast today. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. Make sure you go back and listen to some of our older episodes and try to get a feel and idea of some ways that you can help to step your game up in your career, your business, and your life. If you are a longtime listener, thank you so much for listening to the show, and thank you for your support. I know that it's been just a little bit of a long time since the last time we produced the podcast, but lucky for you and lucky for me too, we have some amazing episodes lined up, already recorded and ready to rock and roll. The Savvy Young Professional podcast is going through a rebrand, and I want you to come right along with us on the ride to refreshing and relaunching our podcast. In the meantime, we're going to still continue to produce epic podcasts and content over at thesavvyYP.com. Make sure you connect with us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. If there's anything that you want to hear or see on the podcast and on the website. Today, though, if you're listening, you are going to be in for a treat. I have Jamillah Rahmaad, who is a professional public relations specialist. And Jamillah is a brand exposure strategist. She specializes in heightening brand awareness for business owners and entrepreneurs. She holds an undergraduate degree from Michigan State University, and she also has a graduate degree as well. Her skill set was developed in big business, where she worked full-time for healthcare facilities and governmental agencies and college and university systems to generate community engagement and marketing strategies. And since then, she has worked with the likes of the Steve Harvey Morning Show, the Starz Cable Network, Grammy Award winner, singer-songwriter PJ Morton, and so many more. So Jamillah is going to give us all the scoop on how to pretty much do your own public relations. Some things that we're going to talk about are what to do online and offline. Some of the things that maybe are overused and some really new ideas for you to step your game up when it comes to your own personal brand. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, like it does to me, make sure you stay tuned to the very end of the podcast. Savvy Young Professional podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I know that the listeners are in for a treat because I had an opportunity to kind of really do my research. And funny enough, I know that you have your own podcast, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm excited for you to kind of get into the nitty gritty of what you do and how it can kind of help some young professionals out there. So tell us a little bit about you and how you ended up getting into the PR world.
Oh man, funny story. So when it comes to PR, I actually started as a pre-med major in college, and I had no idea that I did not like blood and guts and bodily fluids until I was actually set into that scenario. I didn't have anyone, in my life that was like guiding me saying, okay, well, this is what you're passionate about. You need to find a career there. Everyone was very happy that I was going to college. They were like, oh yeah, be a doctor. That's the thing to do. And then I realized that I absolutely hated it. So then I tried healthcare marketing. And then that eventually led me into the field of public relations, where I received my first internship and then my first full-time job as a marketing and PR assistant for a governmental agency. And then from there, I got to move up to, bigger positions and then relocated to Atlanta, Georgia. So the whole entire PR career kind of just happened. I was easily transformed by someone who kind of saw my gifts and saw my talents and said, okay, this is what you should be doing. And it worked out for me. So I have been in the PR profession for a little over 12 years now. And what I do with my clients and people that I coach and work with is I help them build a platform for their business so that it's a clear message about the services or the products that they offer. And it's also a way for them to connect with their audiences that feels organic, that is organic, and brings, new awareness to their brand.
That is interesting. I don't think I've heard from pre-med to PR. That's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
So it's really, you say work with your clients. What type of clients do you, or who knocks on your door typically?
Actually, I get just about everyone knocking on my door. But who I prefer to work with and who I have been working with in the last 2 years are entrepreneurs or business owners who are within the hospitality or entertainment realm. Because those people are always looking for avenues to create innovative products or innovative services. And I really love that creative aspect of that.
So you really work with hospitality entertainment individuals. And I guess it kind of leads me to one of the first questions. With the kind of clients that you work with, what are some of those traits or some of those things that you noticed in that industry or in the clients that you do work with that maybe someone who doesn't work in that field can kind of take on? Like, what are some of the aspects or some of the key qualities in the hospitality and entertainment industry?
Well, one, you have to be bold. And when I say bold, I mean courageous, I mean fearless, and I mean you are ready to step out on faith. Because one thing about being a business owner or an entrepreneur is that you have to have faith in yourself. You have to have faith in your products or your services. You have to believe in your team. There's so much that goes into creating a business that you have to be like that foundation that is bold and really ready to jump out there and say, hey, I have something that is valuable. I have something to say that's going to help people. I have a service that you need to try, and it's really something good. So that is the first thing that I notice with my clients. They're ready to take that step. They know that they have something good that they're ready to share. And then the next would probably be a little bit of likability. I think that that's one really important thing to have, to be able to connect with people in a way that they like you. People are always going to buy and seek out your advice when they like you and they can talk to you on, a normal level and you aren't talking down to people. You're friendly, you're smiley. So I definitely think that the next characteristic has to do with their personalities, and they have to be likable.
And I think that is so interesting, Jamillah, because I don't think that the older you get or the more seasoned that you get in your career, I see a lot of the times people rely on their expertise. And they're like, well, I'm the expert at this. I know this. I've studied this. And that is why you should come to me and you should talk to me. And, like I talked to you a little bit about this before we started recording, but, I work in the sales industry. And what I learned really quickly, was that, yes, it's fine to be the expert, but people do have to be drawn to you. And luckily I'm in, I kind of folded into the sales industry pretty well because I love people. So it's a two-way street. We have fun and I love meeting people, but I also find that there are people who don't have or don't think that being likable and having that likability factor is important because they have the expertise. And that's just kind of where they rest all of their resources into, just learning and growing more, but not necessarily working on those soft skills.
Yes, very true.
So it's about to be a new year. And I know you are probably prepping and getting ready. And I'm not going to lie to you. I am not one of those people who, well, not anymore. I'm just kind of like, it's a new year. Yes. But I always feel like you need to be growing and learning. But there is somebody listening to this podcast who is, the calendar person. They have their new calendar. It's fresh. They got new goals. And in their brain, it's going to be something different this year. So what can you tell someone at this stage in the game, a little bit over a month out from a brand new year? How can a young professional prep for a bigger 2017 in terms of branding themselves?
I think the first thing that everyone needs to remember is to calm down. Everyone, like when we get towards, the fourth quarter, everyone becomes there's this huge panic around, what am I going to be doing next year? My life should change and things should be different. And I'm definitely not saying, don't plan and don't move forward. I'm just saying you can think through strategy and you can come up with your next move if you're calm. Calm down. It's going to be okay. Map out a strategy on where you want to go, what it is you want to do. When it comes to publicity in that realm, if you say, okay, I want to get a certain amount of interviews, I want to have a certain amount of public speaking engagements, map that out for the entire year. How many do you want to have? Okay, well, how many should I be going after each quarter? How many should I be going after each month? Because let's say that's your goal. You want more speaking gigs. One thing that you don't want to do is send out a flurry of, pitches like, hey, I'd like to speak at your next event. And everyone says yes. And then you're not prepared for it. You haven't practiced, you haven't been to Toastmasters. You haven't practiced public speaking. You haven't done Facebook Live or Periscope. So you don't know what it's like to engage with people on a stage, on a platform where they're just looking at you and not necessarily talking back, because that's a totally different feeling. So whatever it is that you're focused on doing, you have to create a strategy for it, and it has to be realistic. Do you really want to be sitting on Oprah's couch tomorrow? I know, like, right now, everyone wants to be on the Steve Harvey show, and it's a amazing platform. I've worked with Steve. I love Steve. But at the same time, if your business has not scaled up to that point where if all these eyes are on you, you can create that product or give that service to a mass audience already, you need to focus on home, focus locally, focus in your community first, and then start building out a strategy bigger. And then when, you can't come up with a strategy, but you're already big enough, then you can hire somebody like me to come in and make sure that things are moving smoothly for your brand.
I really like that piece of advice. I love the calm down, because when I think of the word strategy, I just think of, what it takes to strategize. It takes a calm. You need a calm. You need to be calm. You need to be able to have your thoughts together. You don't need to be panicking or too excited. So I think to hear you say that, which most people won't say that, I think that's going to really serve somebody well that's listening to this. Like, you need to relax, chill out, because you got to be cool and calm to develop a strategy.
Yes. Otherwise, when you're frantic, you will start, stealing other people's ideas, and you'll execute it poorly because it wasn't your originality that created it.
Yeah, you're really operating out of fear.
Yes.
And that can have you doing some really interesting things. I ain't gonna even talk about the elephant in the room on that one, but we're gonna leave that alone. You already know what I'm talking about. But so I've been hearing the term branding a lot lately. I mean, it's just one of those things. I don't know if 2017 was the year. And I haven't really heard it come from necessarily people who are, like 12-year veterans like yourself that know. It's just I don't know if it's a buzz term, but I should have probably asked this question first. What does branding really mean? Because I see so many people, selling that book or selling that course or saying I'm your, personal brand, this and that. But I almost wonder, what are your thoughts about that, and what does it mean to you?
Well, I agree. In the last year or two, the word branding has become a huge buzzword that everyone wants to say or talk about. And for me, within the public relations industry, it has been a word that's been around for forever. But what I really love is that everyone is beginning to understand the importance of building your brand. We're starting to really look at case studies and research and kind of follow these big brands. And it's been made so much easier, with social media. Now we're able to watch what Coca-Cola is doing. Now we're able to see, how they're moving and how they're connecting with their audience, which is starting to, create ideas for us small business owners. So what is a brand? A brand, and this is my own, this isn't Webster's dictionary. This is what Jamillah Rahmaad has to say about it. Jamillah Rahmaad says that your brand is a representation of your household. And you can think of your brand as your business. But when you're thinking of, let's say you go to a friend's house and you know how they run their household, or you know the things that they do. You know, when you go to their house, you've got to take your shoes off at the door. You can't just walk through the house with your tennis shoes on, or you know that there are no smoking household. So this is you knowing about their household. So if you think of that person that's coming to visit your household, what are you going to leave as a lasting impression on them? If you have a visitor at your house, are they going to say, oh my gosh, you know, she cooked a really great dinner. She was so hospitable. The house was really clean. People remember all of these key things when you invite them into your household. So your brand, that's your household. How are you represented to others when they come to your house? That means, you know, when they're coming into your stores, when they're coming to your website, when they're checking you on social media. What do they think about it? What do they see? And that is your brand. Your brand is what other people are thinking about the household that you have created.
Yes. I don't think I've heard anybody put it like that.
I just made that up too.
Hey, look, you need to brand that, because I mean it's that simple, and I love the way that you put that, because what's more personal than someone walking into where you sleep, your home, your safe place. And so I really love that you use that example, because that's something that I think people can grab onto, that can really stick with them, so that they understand what that means. So when we're talking about, you know, branding and personal branding, I hear all of the things lately of why you should, and the benefits, and that's great. What do you think are some of the consequences for not building that personal brand yourself?
Going out of business. Small business owners, I hope that I'm getting the statistic right. After the first year, only half survive, and only 1/3 survive that into the 5th year. And then 1/3 of that half that we already talked about survive in their 10th year. So if people don't know who you are, they don't know what services you offer, they don't know anything about your products, they don't know about your brand, this household that you've built, these really awesome things that you have to offer, then you're going to go out of business, or, you know, you're going to get passed up for that promotion. And because I'm not just talking to entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are within my coaching program, you know, they have side hustles and they want to keep their jobs, and I don't blame them. They have good jobs, but they're building their personal brand so that people know, you know, she's written a book and, you know, she's an expert in that field. You know, if you read her blog, she's going to school you on this or that. So it's really far beyond just thinking of, oh, I don't want to brand my business, because what you're doing is branding yourself.
Mm-hmm. So what, I think I want to ask this. So you gave a really good example of branding. You gave a really good example of why it's important. And you have a book. It's called Build Authority, Boost Credibility. That's pretty straightforward book, pretty straightforward title. And so what do you think are some of the things that people can do to kind of build that credibility? So they may have done the groundwork. They've got the headshots. They got the social media, you know, all aligned and, you know, perfect as far as branding all the way across. People are starting to know, you know, kind of check for them and know them. Maybe it's in the workplace, maybe it's in the business world, whatever that may be. What are some action items that people can do to really punch in that credibility? And so people without a doubt will know, you know what I mean? Like Jamillah, she's PR person. She's expert. What are some of your ideas?
A lot of the ideas and strategies are definitely in the book. So be sure you guys pick up your copy of Build Authority and Boost Credibility. It's action plans to befriend your brand. So in there, I have worksheets that you can go through that's going to help you niche out who your target audience is so that you know how to talk to them and where to talk to them. We also have some things that's going to take you through, you know, scheduling and figuring out your social media, figuring out who you need to pitch and who you need to collaborate with. That's one really big thing I see happening in 2017. In the new year, I definitely think you're going to see more partnerships, more collaborations. So there's a worksheet in there for that. But overall, the book is to help them take their skill set to the next level for their business, to showcase that expertise. And one of the things that you want to do is just pay attention to who is listening to you, or find who wants to hear from you. So that's one of the very most starter rule number one things that I'm going to say. Know who you're talking to and where do you find them at.
Yeah, I think that's key. And even if you take it down to the micro level, as far as, you know, if you're in the workplace, knowing if I'm looking for a promotion, who do I need to be talking to? So maybe I don't need to be talking to, you know, the person that works in the department and spending all my time talking to them when that's not even the department that I want to go into. You know, who should I be networking with and talking to? And I can honestly say, when I was first pushed into a new industry, that was one of the things. I was in sales, so I had to really get pushed into meeting people, and I had to meet them quick and get kind of like familiar with my surroundings. But I do see that people who maybe are not in those more positions that are out there, they tend to kind of stay in certain friend groups in the workplace. And I've seen that just really not work well for promotion purposes.
Yes. You have to branch out. You have to meet new people.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, everybody has their comfort zone. But like you said, if you kind of map it out and know where you want to be, then you can look at that and say, that relationship doesn't make sense to put so much time into right now for where I'm trying to go. So if you are listening to the podcast, make sure you get that book, because I think it's definitely geared to help with strategy. And of course, action is the number one thing that's going to help with you coming up with a strategy. So that's my extra plug on top of hers.
Yes, action. I love that.
And if someone's looking to pivot, let's talk about that a little bit, because I think we're all familiar with the, you know, new, or I'm getting started, or I want to start something new. But what if it's a pivot? I know sometimes kind of moving while you're where you are, like, you know, moving slowly, gradually is a little bit different, and it's not as bold as we talked about earlier. So what are some of your thoughts, or maybe even strategies, on people who are kind of looking to pivot and want to stay where they're at and kind of move into the new place that they want to go?
When you're looking to pivot, one of the biggest things that has helped my business reposition again and again, because within, you know, as a business owner within the industry, you have to accommodate to the changes of, you know, trends happening, or you have to pay attention to the audience that you're taking hold of. So if you're looking to pivot, one of the best things that I can say worked for me personally is to have a mentor to help you kind of transition through that. And then to also have a coach, because they're two different people. The coach is going to help you with the strategy and give you the things that step by step that you need to implement to go to where you want to be. The mentor is like that inspiration and telling you the mistakes they made on their journey or how things are going in their business. So I definitely say get a coach and get a mentor if you are really looking to pivot. If you're really serious about where you want to go, and you know in your heart that that's a passion, that's something that you see for yourself in the future, you have to have a coach and a mentor. And you can't, you know, confuse the two, because they're two different people and you need them both.
No, I think that's a solid piece of advice, and it's definitely a starting point, because mentorship is pretty powerful, and coaching is one of those things that I think people typically do when they're serious and they're ready. So that's a great piece of advice. We're getting a little bit towards the end of our interview and our time, but I always have to we're getting towards the end of our time, and I always like to ask my guests this question, and it's kind of a reflection question. And it's basically, if you knew then, maybe 12 years ago, what you know now, or then could be a year ago, but if you knew then what you know now, what are some of the things that you would have done different, or maybe even the same?
Honestly, personally, one of the things that I would have done differently was to invest heavier in social media. And I mean, financial wise, I would have bought Facebook stock when it was only available to colleges. I would have stuck with the trend of seeing every single social media engine that's out and seeing how it's growing. So that's something that I'm like learning and catching up with now. Not that I'm not a heavy user of social media, I am, but there are tricks and tips and things that people are doing to make sales, to build bigger business, that if you aren't looking for it, you wouldn't even know that it was happening. You just see them winning and you're like, how? That's how they're using automation systems. So I definitely would have learned that earlier instead of, trying to learn now. Because of course we all know how to post. We know how to use keywords. We know how to have the correct messaging. Those are all the things that I learned in PR, but the technical side of social media, the actual technical side, not just the user side of things, that's something that I would have learned earlier in the game.
Yeah, and it's always changing, but that's interesting. That's the first time that I've actually heard that one, and it's probably one of the biggest assets that we do have. And so I would definitely listen into this the first time. If you are in that category where maybe you're reluctant or you're not using that, please take that piece of advice to heart, because it's only going to get better, and those things are only gonna they're going to get better as far as people being able to really maximize them, just the more sophisticated that they get. So thank you for that. We didn't really, well, you did. You told us a lot about the book. Is there anything else that you have going, that you're working on currently, or that you want to tell the audience about?
Yeah, actually for the holiday season, I just released this past week, the ebook for Holiday Guide to Publicity. And that is giving ideas for you to create a marketing campaign during the holiday season. Because I know a lot of people are late to the game. I know a lot of people are frustrated. You're at home with your families and you're trying to travel, or you're at work trying to close out the year. So you're like, oh, I got to do something, for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the Christmas holiday season. It's a big sales season. So you have to know some tricks and ideas to kind of get the attention of new customers and reel them in and stay connected with them. So definitely check that out. It's also available on befriendyourbrand.com. And if you guys are looking for me on social media, please find me on social media. I am JAI_soapbox on all social media, or you can just follow the hashtag befriendyourbrand and you'll find us.
Perfect. You heard it. Calm down, first of all.
Stay calm.
Stay calm. And make sure you go and check Jamillah out. She is going to get you right for 2017. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm really excited that we got to do this, and I cannot wait to see the holiday guide and all the new stuff that you have coming out in 2017.
Yes, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me. I've had a blast.